My wife told me to go home, so I did. That sentence probably sounds simple, maybe even reasonable. But let me back up, because the real story starts on that beach in Cape Cod, where everything I thought I knew about my marriage went up in flames under the August sun. I just asked him to put sunscreen on my back, Audrey said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her voice had that edge, the one she uses when she wants witnesses. If you're so jealous about everything, Evan, just go home. As the story unfolds, take a moment to like, hit the hype button, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive her or walk away? She didn't whisper it. She announced it, right there on the sand, with our friends pretending to look at their phones, at the waves, at literally anything except my face going red. Cal Dorsey stood behind her, bottle of SPF 50 in his hand, like some kind of tropical savior, grinning that white-teeth grin that made him a minor celebrity on Instagram. I should tell you about Cal. He was the kind of guy who described himself as a travel storyteller with zero irony. Former cruise ship captain turned influencer, always tan, always wearing linen shirts that somehow never wrinkled. He had that easy charm that made people trust him immediately. I didn't trust him from the first handshake, from the first time Audrey mentioned his name with that particular brightness in her voice. No problem, I said. My voice was flat, lifeless. I'll head out. Audrey blinked. She hadn't expected me to agree. Her mouth opened slightly, confusion flickering across her face. What? You said to go home. So I'm going home. I turned and walked up the beach, sand kicking up behind my heels. Behind me, I heard someone, probably Mallory, Audrey's oldest friend, say something that got cut off mid-sentence. Then laughter. Light, carefree, the sound of people who weren't walking away from their marriage. The sound of people who thought this was just another couple's spat, something we'd laugh about later over drinks. They had no idea what they'd just witnessed. The drive back to Rockport took 4 hours. I didn't turn on music, didn't call anyone. I just drove, watching the highway lights blur past, thinking about that sunscreen bottle, about his hands on her shoulders, about the way she leaned back into his touch, casual, like it was normal, like I was the crazy one for noticing, like I was the problem. I'm an architectural designer. I renovate houses, mostly old New England colonials that need their guts ripped out and rebuilt. People hire me because I see what others miss, the load-bearing walls that can't be moved, the foundations that are rotting from underneath, the structural problems hiding behind pretty facades. I solve problems with logic and precision. I don't get emotional about a wall that needs to come down. I just remove it. Marriage, I was learning, followed similar principles. I got home around midnight. Our house sat at the end of Harbor View Road, a restored 1890s Victorian that I'd spent 2 years fixing up. White clapboard, blue shutters, a wraparound porch that overlooked the marina. Audrey loved telling people we lived there. She loved the prestige of it, the way people's eyes widened when they heard the address. She loved being Mrs. Marner of Harbor View Road. Inside, the silence felt different. Heavier. Like the house knew something had changed. I didn't turn on the lights, just sat in the kitchen, listening to the coffee maker hum and click in the darkness, listening to the old pipes settle, listening to my own breathing. My phone buzzed. Instagram notification. Audrey had posted a photo, her and Cal and 3 other friends around a beach bonfire, everyone holding drinks with little umbrellas. The caption read, "Beach vibes with the best people. So grateful for these souls. Summer loving and living. #blessed. #summer lovin'." I wasn't in the photo. I'd been cropped out. Or maybe I'd never been in the frame at all. I sat there for a long time, staring at that post. 73 likes already. Comments rolling in. "You look amazing." "So jealous." "Living your best life, girl." That's what I'm talking about. Heart emojis. Fire emojis. The whole digital parade of validation she craved like oxygen. That's when something shifted inside me. Not anger. Anger is hot and messy and stupid. This was colder, cleaner, like flipping a blueprint over and suddenly seeing the building from a completely different angle, seeing all the weaknesses in the design, all the places where the structure could fail. Audrey wanted me to be jealous. She wanted the drama, the scene, the validation of having two men fight over her. She wanted me to make a spectacle, to give her friends something to talk about, to make her the center of attention. But what if I didn't give her that? What if I gave her something else entirely? The next morning, I woke up early. The sun was just starting to come through the bedroom windows, that gray New England dawn that never quite commits to brightness. I made coffee, strong and black, and sat at my desk in the home office. Not the desk where I worked on client projects, the other one, the one I used for business planning and finances. I opened a new notebook, the kind I use for complicated renovations, leather-bound with grid paper inside. At the top of the first page, I wrote 2 words: restoration plan. I'm not an aggressive man, never threw a punch in my life, never even got into a shoving match in high school. But I understand structures. I understand how things are built, and therefore, how they come apart. Every building has a weak point. Every system has a failure mode. You just have to find it and apply pressure. First, I pulled up our joint credit card statements. Audrey handled the household finances. She was better at it, she always said. Better at keeping track of things, better at organization, better at a lot of things, apparently. I scrolled back through 3 months of charges, grocery stores, gas stations, her favorite boutique downtown, normal life expenses. Then I went back further. April, Caribbean Voyager Cruise Line, guest services charge, $4,200, 2 staterooms purchased in April, 1 under Audrey's name, 1 under Cal Dorsey's name. April, 4 months ago. I sat back in my chair, letting that information settle into my bones. This wasn't new. This wasn't a beach weekend that got out of hand, wasn't some spontaneous attraction that flared up in the summer heat. This was planned, ongoing, deliberate. They'd gone on a cruise together while I was supposedly at a design conference in Boston, while I was 300 miles away looking at sustainable building materials and networking with other architects. I kept scrolling. More charges, hotels in Portland, restaurants I'd never been to, a jewelry purchase from a store Audrey claimed she'd never heard of. All of it hiding in plain sight, buried in the normal flow of expenses, camouflaged by grocery bills and utility payments. The funny thing about betrayal is how it recalibrates your memory. Suddenly, all these little moments made sense. The way she started going to the gym at odd hours. 5 in the morning, she'd said, to beat the crowds. The new lingerie in her drawer, tags still on, lace and silk in colors she knew I liked but never wore for me. Her phone face down on every surface, always. The way she'd started showering immediately when she got home, before even saying hello. I could have confronted her right then. Printed out the statements, thrown them in her face when she walked in the door. Yelled, cried, demanded answers. That's what she'd expect, what she might even want in some twisted way. The big dramatic confrontation, tears and accusations, the kind of scene that would let her play the victim, let her tell her friends I was controlling and paranoid. Instead, I called my attorney. "Evan, good to hear from you," Mark said. He'd handled the house purchase for us 2 years ago, had guided me through the complicated process of buying a historic property. "What can I do for you?" "I need to restructure some assets, separate my business accounts from my personal ones. Also need to understand Maine's property laws regarding marital property." A pause on the line. I could hear him shifting papers, his chair creaking. "Is everything okay?" "Just planning ahead," I said. "Being smart about things. You always told me to keep business and personal separate." Sure. That's good thinking. Come by tomorrow, say 10 o'clock?" "Perfect." I hung up and opened my laptop. Started documenting everything. Screenshots of credit card charges, each one saved with a date stamp. Instagram posts showing Audrey in places she'd told me she wasn't. A photo Cal had posted 3 weeks ago, him on a boat deck at sunset, Audrey visible in the background wearing a red dress I'd never seen, tagged in the location but not in the caption. Comments from her friends about what a gorgeous couple that had been quickly deleted. I wasn't building a legal case. Maine is a no-fault divorce state. Her infidelity wouldn't matter much in court. I was building leverage. I was mapping out the weak points in her carefully constructed life. 2 days later, Audrey came home. I was in the kitchen making coffee. I seemed to be making a lot of coffee those days, when I heard her car in the driveway. The door opened. She walked in glowing, skin-bronzed, hair lighter from the salt and sun. She wore a white sundress and sandals, looking like she'd just stepped out of a resort catalog. "Hey," she said, dropping her weekend bag by the door. She was testing the temperature of the room, seeing if I was still angry, if I was going to start a fight. "Hey," I replied. Neutral. I poured coffee into 2 mugs, added cream to hers the way she liked it. "I'm sorry about the beach thing," she said, but her voice had no weight to it. The words were just sounds, reflexive, the kind of apology you give when you bump into someone at the grocery store. "I was just stressed, you know. Work's been absolutely crazy. That new campaign launch has me working 60-hour weeks." "Sure. Cal's harmless. He's just friendly. He's like that with everyone. You know how influencer types are, always performing." "Okay." She frowned. This wasn't the script she'd expected. "Are you mad?" "No." "You seem mad. You have that tone." I turned to her, handed her the coffee mug, looked directly into her eyes. "I'm not mad, Audrey. I'm just tired. It was a long drive back, and I have a client meeting this afternoon about the Patterson renovation." That should have been her cue to probe deeper, to ask what I meant by tired, to show some concern about the state of our marriage. Instead, she looked relieved. The tension went out of her shoulders. "Good. I'm glad. Because I was thinking, maybe we could have people over Friday. Mallory and her boyfriend, maybe Sarah and Tom, just drinks on the porch. The weather's supposed to be beautiful." "Sounds nice," I said. She studied me for a second, trying to figure out if I was being sarcastic. But I kept my face neutral, pleasant. Finally, she shrugged. "Okay, great, I'm going to shower. I feel like I have sand in places sand should never be." She laughed. I didn't. After she left, after I heard the water running upstairs, I sat down with my notebook, added 3 new entries, started sketching the blueprint of what came next. In architecture, we call it the load path, the way forces travel through a structure. If you want to bring something down, you don't attack it randomly. You trace the load path and remove the supports one by one. I was going to remove every support in Audrey's life. The thing about revenge is that everyone expects it to be dramatic. Explosions, confrontations, public humiliations. Movies and books have trained us to expect the wronged party to do something spectacular and immediate. But real revenge, the kind that actually works, the kind that changes someone's life permanently, is quiet. It's structural. You don't tear down the walls with a sledgehammer. You remove the foundation and let gravity do the rest. Mark's office smelled like old books and furniture polish. He'd been practicing law in Rockport for 30 years, had handled half the property transfers in town, knew every quirk of Maine real estate law. His office walls were covered with photos of boats. He was a sailor, spent every weekend out on the water when the weather allowed. "So," he said, spreading papers across his mahogany desk, "you want to transfer the house into your name only." "I paid for it," I said. "Entirely. Before we were married. The down payment came from my business account. I've been paying the mortgage from my personal account, not our joint account, just never updated the deed to reflect that clearly." "That's true. I have the records from the purchase, but she's lived there for 2 years as your wife. Maine law might give her some claim to it as marital property, depending on how a judge interprets the situation." "What if we separated? Legally?" Mark's eyebrows went up. He set down his pen and leaned back in his leather chair, the springs creaking. Are you separating? Theoretically. Theoretically. He said the word slowly, carefully. Evan, what's going on? You and Audrey seemed solid at the charity dinner last month. Appearances can be deceiving. You know that better than anyone. He nodded slowly. All right. Theoretically, if you filed for legal separation before filing for divorce, you could make a stronger argument that the house is premarital property. You'd want to document that you've been the sole financial contributor. Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, everything. I have been. I can pull all the records. Then theoretically, yes, you could secure it. Maine courts look at equitable distribution, but premarital property that's been kept separate usually stays with the original owner. The key word being separate. If you've been paying for everything from your accounts, you have a case. He paused, studying my face. Evan, what's really going on? This doesn't sound theoretical. Just planning ahead, I said. Being smart about protecting what I've built. I left his office with paperwork, filed the legal separation documents that afternoon at the county clerk's office. Quiet, legal, no drama, just forms and signatures and official stamps. Audrey would get served eventually, but not yet. The wheels of bureaucracy turned slowly, and I needed time. I needed to put all the other pieces in place first. That Friday, her friends came over just like she'd planned. I played the perfect host, made gin and tonics with fresh lime, grilled salmon with herb butter, laughed at jokes, asked people about their lives. I was charming, attentive, the Evan everyone expected to see. Mallory kept giving me strange looks, though. She'd corner me by the grill or in the kitchen, trying to catch me alone. Mallory Shaw was 29, an event planner with more connections than the telephone company. She'd been Audrey's friend since college, knew everything about everyone in our social circle. She was also, I'd learned over the years, completely incapable of keeping a secret. You seem really good, she said, finding me by the grill as I flipped the salmon. After everything. After what? She blinked, surprised. The beach thing, last weekend. Audrey said you guys had a pretty big fight. Oh, that. Just a misunderstanding. We're fine. Really? Because she made it sound like you were really upset. She said you just left, drove all the way home alone. I was tired. Long week at work. Sometimes you just need your own bed, you know? But she said, Mallory, I interrupted, smiling warmly. We're fine. Really. Audrey sometimes makes things sound more dramatic than they are. You know how she is. I could see the gears turning in her head. Audrey had told her one story, probably a version where I was jealous and controlling and dramatic. I was showing her another, calm, rational, unbothered. The contradiction would eat at her. She'd talk about it, wonder about it, share her confusion with other friends. But I could see the gears turning in her head. Audrey had told one story. I was showing her another. The seeds of doubt were planted. Cal wasn't at the party. He was apparently in Portland doing some influencer event, something about sustainable tourism and eco-friendly travel. Audrey mentioned it casually, like it was nothing, like his name didn't mean anything special. I nodded and smiled and served the salmon. The next week, I made my first real move. I woke up at 5 a.m, before dawn. Drove down to the marina while the fog was still thick, rolling in off the ocean in gray waves. The docks were empty except for a few fishermen getting ready for early runs. Cal kept his car in the parking lot near his boat slip, a black Dodge Charger he'd bought with his influencer money, vanity plates that read CPTCL, Captain Cal. The guy didn't even lock it properly. I'd noticed that before, how careless he was with his possessions, confident that nothing bad would ever happen to him. I popped the hood, didn't slash tires or smash windows. Nothing that obvious, nothing that would point to vandalism or anger. Instead, I had a large bottle of shrimp brine from the fish market, the really potent stuff, the liquid that accumulates at the bottom of the bins where they keep the bait shrimp. "No problem," I said. My voice was flat, lifeless. "I'll head out." I poured it carefully into the AC vents, deep down into the system where it would seep into the blower motor and the ducts and the upholstery, closed the hood quietly, walked away through the fog. 2 days later, the entire marina was buzzing about it. Cal's car apparently reeked of something rotting inside. He'd taken it to 3 different mechanics, none of whom could figure out the source. They'd checked for decomposed animals, leaks, and mold. Nothing. The stench was just there, embedded in the upholstery, in the vents, everywhere. It got worse when he ran the AC or the heat. Eventually, he couldn't stand it anymore. Sold it to a junkyard for scrap. I heard about it from Jerry, who owns the bait shop at the marina. He thought it was hilarious. "That pretty boy finally got what was coming to him," Jerry said, laughing. "Always parking that fancy car where real working folks need to load their boats. Karma's a witch, ain't it?" "Sure is," I agreed. That same week, I made my second move. Mallory had given me a ride to pick up my truck from the mechanic, timing belt replacement, and while getting out, I very carefully dropped a folded paper on the floor mat. A hotel receipt showing a Miami booking from May. 2 rooms, connecting. Audrey's name and Cal's name. The hotel logo clearly visible. Mallory called Audrey that night. I know because Audrey came home shaking, her hands actually trembling as she poured herself a glass of wine. "Mallory's asking weird questions," she said. Her voice was tight, controlled. "About Miami, about Cal." "What kind of questions?" "Like if we're close, if I've traveled with him, if we've ever been to Florida together." "What did you tell her?" "That we're just friends, that I've never been to Miami with him." She took a long drink of wine. But she kept pushing. She said she found some receipt or something, asked if you and I had gone to Miami. "Did we?" "No, you know we didn't." I shrugged. "Then what's the problem? If you didn't go to Miami with Cal, Mallory must have gotten confused somehow. Maybe she found someone else's receipt." "But why would she think—" "Audrey," I said calmly, looking up from my laptop. "If you're telling the truth, then there's nothing to worry about. Right?" She stared at me, trying to figure out if I knew, trying to calculate what I might have seen or heard or discovered. I gave her nothing, just a neutral expression, mild interest, then back to my screen. But I could see the panic in her eyes. The gossip chain was starting, and once it started in a town like Rockport, once Mallory Shaw got her teeth into something, it didn't stop. It metastasized, spread, grew. September came with cold rain and gray skies, the summer tourists leaving, the town settling back into its off-season quiet. The leaves started turning early, reds and golds against the gray ocean. Audrey's carefully constructed image was developing cracks like old paint on clapboard. It started small. Friends who used to call stopped calling. Invitations to dinner parties dried up. Her book club suddenly had scheduling conflicts when she tried to host. Nothing explicit, nothing she could point to and fight. Just a gradual cooling, a social isolation that crept in like fog. At work, things got worse. Audrey worked at a marketing firm in town, mid-level executive, good at her job. But I'd learned through careful observation that her success depended heavily on relationships, on being liked, on being the person everyone wanted on their team. When whispers started, and they did start, thanks to Mallory's inability to keep anything to herself, Audrey's boss started giving her less visible projects, moving her off the prestige accounts, excluding her from client dinners. She tried to blame me at first. "Did you say something to Mallory?" she demanded one night. We were in the kitchen. She was making herself dinner. We'd stopped eating together weeks ago. "Did you tell her something about me and Cal?" "Like what?" "I don't know, but she's been weird. She's telling people things, and now everyone's been weird. Sarah won't return my texts. Tom told me he and his wife can't make drinks next week. Even my own cousin is acting strange. Maybe you should ask Cal, I said, keeping my voice light, casual. He seems to know you pretty well. Maybe he has insights. What the hell does that mean? Nothing. Just that you two are friends. Close friends. Maybe he knows what's going on. She stared at me, her face pale. Are you accusing me of something? Should I be? No. God, Evan, no, we're friends. That's all. Why are you being like this? I looked up from my laptop, met her eyes. I'm not being like anything. You asked if I said something to Mallory. I didn't. That's the truth. Whatever's happening with your friends, it's not because of me. Which was technically true. I hadn't said anything to Mallory. I'd just left that receipt where she'd find it. Let her draw her own conclusions. Let the gossip machine do what gossip machines do. She stared at me for another long moment, then turned away, went back to her dinner. But I could see her hands shaking as she chopped vegetables. The thing is, I did know everything. I knew about the cruise in April, the hotel rooms in Miami and Portland and 3 other cities, the texts she thought she'd deleted but that were backed up to our shared cloud account. I'd found them all, read every message, every "I miss you" and "can't wait to see you" and "he doesn't understand me like you do." I had it all documented, cataloged, saved in 3 separate locations. But I wasn't using it yet, wasn't confronting her with proof, because that would give her a chance to explain, to spin a story, to make herself the victim somehow. And I didn't want explanations. I wanted consequences. That week, Cal's world started crumbling too, and I can't take full credit for that. Sometimes karma does part of the work itself. One of his sponsored posts went live on Instagram, a beach vacation somewhere tropical. The caption read, "Exploring paradise with amazing people. #blessed, #travel life, #grateful. Standard influencer nonsense." But someone in the comments recognized the woman in the background. Not Audrey. Someone else entirely. A girl from Portland, early 20s, who'd been posting photos with Cal for months on her own account. Photos he'd carefully avoided being tagged in. Photos she'd captioned with heart emojis and inside jokes. The comments section erupted. People started digging, cross-referencing posts, finding inconsistencies. Cal had apparently been seeing multiple women simultaneously, telling each of them they were special, unique, the one. His carefully crafted image as a romantic travel blogger, the guy who found authentic connections in exotic places, fell apart in real time. His sponsors pulled out within 48 hours. Posts started disappearing. His follower count dropped like a stone, thousands of people hitting unfollow, leaving angry comments. Brands that had paid him to promote their luggage and travel gear and hotels all issued statements distancing themselves from him. I watched it happen from my desk, drinking coffee, feeling absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just cold observation. "Did you see Cal's Instagram?" Audrey asked one morning. She'd come down to the kitchen looking like she hadn't slept. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed. "Did you see what's happening to him?" "No." "What happened?" "He's getting destroyed. Someone found out he was seeing multiple women at the same time, posted about it. Now his whole brand is ruined. All his sponsors dropped him. He's losing everything. That's rough." "Evan..." She stopped, studied my face. "You're not even curious? You're not asking questions?" "About what?" "About anything. About Cal. About whether I knew. About us. You don't care that Cal's life is falling apart? You don't care about our marriage?" "I care," I said. "I care a lot." "Then why are you so calm about everything? Why don't you ever get angry? Why don't you yell or cry or do something?" "Because getting angry doesn't fix anything. You taught me that. Remember? At the beach? You told me I was too jealous, too emotional, that I needed to calm down and go home. So I did. I calmed down." She flinched like I'd slapped her. Took a step back. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" She didn't answer. Just walked away, went back upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close. Lock. I went back to my notebook. Added another entry. The structure was collapsing right on schedule, each support beam failing exactly when it was supposed to. Load path traced and executed. By mid-September, Audrey's life had shrunk considerably. She'd stopped going out, stopped posting on social media. Her friends had all but disappeared. At work, I'd heard through connections, Rockport is a small town, everyone knows everyone, that she was being managed out. Not fired, nothing so dramatic. Just given increasingly meaningless tasks, excluded from meetings, isolated until she'd have no choice but to quit or accept a demotion. She tried to talk to me about it one night, found me in the garage, where I was working on a client's cabinet doors, sanding them smooth. Evan, we need to talk. About what? About us, about what's happening. Everything's falling apart and you're acting like nothing's wrong. Is something wrong? Yes, obviously. Our marriage is falling apart. I set down the sandpaper, looked at her. Our marriage fell apart on a beach in August. I'm just catching up to reality. That's not fair, isn't it? I picked up the sandpaper again, went back to work. You humiliated me in front of our friends, told me to go home, spent the day with another man, posted photos without me in them. And now you want to talk about fair? I made a mistake, I know that. But this, she gestured around, at the garage, at the house, at everything. This silent treatment, this coldness, it's cruel. Is it? Or is it just me finally setting boundaries? You wanted me less jealous, less emotional. Here I am. That's not what I wanted. Then what did you want, Audrey? Say it clearly. She opened her mouth, closed it. Couldn't find the words. Because saying it clearly would mean admitting what she'd done, admitting that she'd wanted Cal's attention while keeping my stability, wanted the thrill of the affair while maintaining the respectability of marriage, wanted everything with no consequences. I thought so, I said, and went back to sanding. She left the garage. I heard her car start, drive away. She didn't come home until after midnight. October brought the first real storm of the season, a nor'easter that forecasters had been tracking for days, watching it build over the Atlantic, spinning into something powerful and destructive. The kind of storm that shuts down the coast, sends waves crashing over the seawall, turns the marina into chaos. I was driving through it that afternoon, windshield wipers on full speed, barely keeping up with the rain. I'd been at a client's house across town, checking on a renovation, making sure the crew had secured everything before the storm hit. That's when I saw her. Audrey, standing alone on Rockport Beach, the small stretch of sand at the end of our street. Waves hammering the shore behind her, wind whipping her hair, rain soaking through her clothes. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the confident woman who'd laughed at me 2 months ago. I parked the truck, walked down to her. The wind immediately tried to tear my jacket off. "What are you doing here?" I shouted over the storm. She turned slowly. Her eyes were red. I needed to think. In a hurricane? I needed to understand. She wiped rain from her face with a shaking hand. "Did you do this? All of it?" "Do what?" "Don't play dumb. Cal, the gossip, my job, my friends, everything falling apart at exactly the same time. Did you orchestrate this?" I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 5 years, married for 3, who'd stood on a beach and humiliated me in front of friends, who'd laughed while I burned. "You told me to go home," I said. "So I did." "That's not an answer." "Yes, it is. You wanted me gone. You wanted space to do whatever you were doing with Cal, without me in the way. So I left, and I started taking care of myself for once. I made mistakes, I know that, but this is cruel. This is calculated and cruel." "Is it?" I laughed, and the sound was ugly. "You spent months having an affair, spent my money on hotel rooms and cruises with another man, lied to my face every single day, and when I finally said something, you told me I was too jealous and needed to leave. In front of everyone. So who's really cruel here, Audrey? Thunder cracked overhead. She stepped closer. I loved you. I still love you. Past tense was right the first time. You love what I provide. The house, the stability, the respectability. You loved having a husband you could ignore while you played with someone more exciting. That's not true. Then explain the cruise. Explain Miami. Explain every hotel room and lie. She froze. How do you... No? I'm not stupid, Audrey. I'm an architect. I notice things. I saw your patterns months ago. If you knew, why didn't you say something? Because I was too busy trying to save a marriage that you had already destroyed. I can fix this. We can fix this. You already did end things with Cal. He's done. His career's over. His reputation's destroyed. And you know what? I didn't even have to do much there. He destroyed himself. I just gave things a little push. She stared at me. The car, the gossip, the posts. You did all of it. I protected what's mine. That's all. What's yours? It means the house is mine. I filed for separation 3 weeks ago. My lawyer already has all the documentation showing it's premarital property that I've maintained solely with my own income. You'll be served papers soon. Her face went white. You can't do that. I already did. Everything's legal. Everything's proper. Unlike you, I don't do things halfway. When I commit to something, I follow through. So what? You're just going to throw me out? Leave me with nothing? You'll get whatever the law says you get. Which isn't much, considering the house is mine and we kept separate finances. You have your car, your job for now, your friends, if you have any left. This isn't you. The Evan I married wouldn't do this. The Evan you married didn't have a wife who cheated on him. Funny how people change when you betray them. Lightning split the sky behind her. You destroyed my life, she said, crying now. You systematically destroyed everything I care about. No, you did that. You made every choice that led here. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. I can't lose everything. You should have thought of that before. A car pulled up behind mine. Cal got out, jogging over in an expensive rain jacket already soaked through. Get away from her, he called out. I turned to him, this man who'd smiled while putting sunscreen on my wife's back, who'd taken her on cruises and to hotels and posted photos of his perfect life while destroying mine. Or what? I asked. He stepped closer, puffing up his chest. Or I'll make you. I hit him. One punch, straight to the jaw. Not particularly hard. I'm an architect, not a fighter. But hard enough. He went down in the wet sand, more surprised than hurt. Stay down, I said. I walked back to my truck and grabbed the box I'd prepared that morning. Carried it back, dropped it at Audrey's feet. It landed with a heavy thud. Here, I said. Everything you need. Copies of the property deeds. All in my name now. Documentation of every credit card charge you made with him. Printouts of the texts you thought you deleted. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, cruise bookings. All of it. Why are you giving me this? Take it to a lawyer if you want. Fight me in court. But you should know. It won't work. Maine law is pretty clear about premarital property. And I have 3 years of documentation showing I've paid for everything. You contributed nothing. You planned this. You planned all of this. I'm an architect. Planning is what I do. I looked down at Cal, still sitting in the sand. And you can have him, by the way. What's left of him. Though I don't know what good he'll do you now. No money, no sponsors, no career. You're a bastard, Audrey said. Maybe. But I'm a bastard who still has a house, still has a business, still has a reputation. What do you have? She didn't answer. I started walking back to my truck. The rain was letting up slightly, the worst of the storm passing through. Where am I supposed to go? Audrey screamed behind me. What am I supposed to do? I stopped, turned back one last time. She stood there soaked and shaking, the box at her feet, Cal struggling to stand beside her. I don't know, I said. Maybe ask him to put sunscreen on your back. That seemed to work before. I got in my truck, started the engine, put it in gear, and drove away, watching them in the rearview mirror getting smaller until the rain made them disappear. The drive home felt long. I kept expecting to feel something, triumph, satisfaction, regret, but there was just emptiness, cold, clean, structural emptiness. I'd removed every support, traced the load path, applied pressure at every weak point. The structure had collapsed exactly as planned. I pulled into the driveway, my house. The Victorian stood there solid and beautiful, looking exactly like a home should look. Mine. Inside, I made coffee. Sat in the kitchen, listening to the last of the rain. My phone buzzed constantly. Probably Audrey, or Mallory, or someone wanting the gossip. I didn't check it. Architects don't destroy. They redesign. They take what's broken and make it better. I'd done that. Stripped everything down and built it back up. Different. Better. Mine. She told me to go home if I was so jealous. So I did. I went home. I left her behind. And I took the home with me.